The President, Prime Minister, Opposition Leader and the UN Secretary General have issued messages to mark Vesak Full Moon Poya Day.
In his message, President Mahinda Rajapaksa says that the teachings of Lord Buddha are the best ways to lead a life that is free of confusion. He goes on to say that these teachings show us the path to lead a life free of fourfold evils and achieve success in this world and the next. The President calls on the public to pave the way to success in this world and the next by eschewing all disputes and divisions and making a commitment to national unity and religious coexistence through seeing the true light of Buddhist teaching. The message issued by Prime Minister D.M. Jayaratne for Vesak notes that the steps taken by the government during the past year to foster Buddhism is praiseworthy. The Prime Minister says that the public should be determined to celebrate Vesak while spreading peace and unity. Issuing a message for Vesak, Opposition Leader Ranil Wickremesinghe says that attempts should be made to live without hatred in a society filled with hatred. He points out that this year's Vesak is celebrated during a time period where hatred is spread instead of kindness, and qualities such as metta, karuna, mudita and upekka have been limited merely to billboards. Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, says that Buddhism has much to offer to the process of sustainable development. He stated this in a message issued for the Vesak festival. He invites Buddhists and people of all traditions to use the occasion of the day of Vesak to reflect on how we can change our actions to pave the way for a more sustainable future.
Astrologers say that the Vesak Full Moon will travel at a distance of 50,000 kilometers closer to the Earth today.
Senior lecturer at the Department of Physics at the University of Colombo, Professor Chandana Jayaratne said that as a result the Vesak full moon can be viewed 14% bigger than usual. He added that the moon will also be 30% brighter today. The moon does not orbit Earth in a circular path, but in an elliptical path. Therefore, the distance between the Earth and the moon does not remain the same. Therefore, it is distant on 2 occasions and becomes closer in another 2 occasions. This full moon Poya Day is a day where the moon will be at its largest. It could be clearly visible if you look at the evening sky during sunset. It can also be seen when the sun is rising. There may be a slight increase in the tides as well due to this reason. Such a situation will reoccur on the 14th of August 2014.
And we're back with news first. President Mahinda Rajapaksa inspected the Upper Kotmale power plant this morning. Japan's Deputy Prime Minister Katsuya Okada accompanied the President on this inspection tour.
The Upper Kotmale power plant has a capacity to generate up to 150 megawatts of power. President Mahinda Rajapaksa and the Deputy Prime Minister of Japan unveiled a commemorative plaque to mark the visit of the two leaders. The President and the guests proceeded to sprinkle flowers onto the water below. Thereafter, gates 2 and 4 of the Upper Kotmale reservoir were opened.
We now see a clear change in our climate pattern, and as a result, there are natural disasters occurring which we have never heard. Therefore, we must join hands to find ways and means to overcome these problems and ensure the provision of efficient energy to our people at an affordable price through sustainable resources such as hydro, solar, wind before it is too late. Then only we can realize the sustainable development for our future generations.
According to officials, 96% of the infrastructure at the power plant has been constructed, while the required machinery has already been set up. According to the Presidential Media Unit, the power generated from the second generator at the power plant will be added to the national grid by June this year. The project is being funded by a development loan of 37.8 billion yen granted by the Japanese government. The Presidential Media Unit also noted that the Ceylon Electricity Board has also invested the sum of 8,548 million rupees in the project. It also adds that 495 families that lost their homes due to this project have been granted houses. Meanwhile, the Deputy Prime Minister of Japan, who arrived in Sri Lanka on a 2-day official visit, called on President Mahinda Rajapaksa at the President's house in Kandy yesterday. The President had revealed during the meeting that all necessary steps are being taken to fulfill the aspirations of the people in the north and east following the end of the 3-decade-long conflict. Deputy Prime Minister Okada had commended the government on the ongoing development and also thanked Sri Lanka for assisting Japan during the recent tsunami.
The head of the EU parliamentary delegation to South Asia, Jean Lambert, says that there is still a need for progress on a political settlement in the country. She expressed this view during an exclusive interview with News First's Shamir Rasouldin.
How do you view Sri Lanka's situation compared to your last visit to the island?
I think compared to our last visit, which was only last year, what we're noticing is, I think, a feeling of more relaxation, noticeable in the capital in Colombo itself. There's progress moving, but there are still some areas, where progress maybe hasn't been as much as we'd have hoped.
Ma'am, you met officials attached to the government, high-ranking officials attached to the government during your visit to the island. What were the key concerns you raised with them during your discussions?
Some of the key concerns that we've raised with them have obviously been about the follow-up to the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission, because there were a lot of, from our point of view, some very positive recommendations within that for how to deal with certain of the issues arising from the conflict. 13th Amendment, some of the issues around disappearances, death certificates, land has been another issue that we've been discussing with them.
Ma'am, during the recent past we saw several abductions taking place in the island, several disappearances taking place, especially in the north and east of the island as well. Tell me, did you raise these concerns with the government, and did you tell them as to what recommendations the EU Parliament has on this respect?
We haven't raised the issues about the most recent abductions because, again, that's something that's only been coming up sort of towards the end of our discussion in detail. We did raise questions of recent arrests in Eastern Province that have been raised with us, and we've asked some questions around those, and I think there's a difference of opinion about quite what's been happening there, in terms of numbers, in terms of the sort of reasoning behind it. The issue about impunity is certainly something we raised with the Justice Minister earlier this week, because again this was something from last time. It's been something that's raised with us by people who won't feel that the law and order system is really working properly until they feel that nobody is above the law.
Ma'am, what message would you be taking back home to your country regarding Sri Lanka?
The message we're taking back home is that there's some very positive movement here, but that in terms of sort of a political settlement, in terms of the issues around the conflict, there's still a need for progress on the political settlement.